I don't know what it is that causes people to shudder when they hear the term blended whiskey, especially in the US, I feel like. But today is going to be dedicated to addressing that trauma response, for lack of a better term. Because say what you will about blended whiskeys, I feel like most of the time they are very fun. They're different, they're unique, sometimes they're weird, but like in a good way. We're going to talk about some of those today. I think if you say nothing else about these whiskeys, they're fun if you have an open mind. Let's take it back to basics for a second. A blended whiskey is exactly what it sounds like it would be. Different countries have different rules about what qualifies as different things, right? In Scotland, you've got certain rules for single malts. In America, you got certain rules for American single malts, certain rules for bourbon. A blended whiskey, different rules depending on where you're at, but it's a blend of different whiskeys. So all three that we're going to look at today are blended whiskeys in the United States. They're not bourbon, they're not rye, they're not a wheated whiskey. They're a blend of a few of those different things, or they're a blend maybe of a whiskey from somewhere else, and you put them together and you create this generic thing. So there's a huge flavor profile that blended whiskeys cover for that reason. You might imagine we're going to be looking at a high-rye bourbon mixed with single malt, I think. Yeah, we're going to be looking at that here in a second. That's going to taste super different from an Irish whiskey mixed with a rye whiskey, something like that. There's a huge flavor profile here with blended whiskey. So I think that's one of the reasons that people are like, I don't like them, because maybe they have one they don't like and that sort of a thing. So we're going to talk about three different ones to be exact, that I actually personally underestimated the first time. Like before I had them, I was like, eh. And I tasted them and I'm like, okay, this is fun. This is different. I'm going to say fun a lot in this video, so just be warned. Let's start looking at them. We're going to start with one that most people have probably heard of and probably thought was a bourbon the first time they heard about it. But before we do that, make sure you subscribe to this video, ring that notification bell so that you don't ever miss one of my videos, because we're going to start cranking them out here soon. Let's talk about TX blended whiskey. What? This isn't a bourbon? No, it's not. They do make a bourbon, but this is not a bourbon. TX blended whiskey is the first blended whiskey that I can recall having, and it's weird, and it's also kind of hard to find things about online. When I did a podcast about it a long time ago, I was like, I can't find this anywhere. I can't find what this is. I actually, for today's video, found the only place online that I could find this was abcliquorwineandbeer.com. And I found they put what is blended here, except that it's a proprietary blend, so we don't know amounts, but they say that it's straight bourbon, whiskey matured in ex-bourbon barrels, and distilled grain spirit. That is what they say it is a blend of, and once again, that's abcliquorwineandbeer.com. They're the only ones that I could find with this information. Thank you to Google AI for going through and finding that for me. But that is at least what they say this is. And based on the timeline on the website, on TX's website, the impression that I get is this was their blend they came up with while they were maturing their own distillate. I think this is sourced from what I'm able to find. And then they were coming out with their own bourbon, which then launched later. They were aging that. And so this was their first launch. It's only 82 proof, and let's dive into the tasting notes before I say anything else. I don't think this was intentional, but the cloth that they put around here, I know it's like supposed to be symbolic for something, does a great job of stopping the drip from going all the way down the bottle, but then you have like a damp cloth around your bottle. I did a quick Google search and confirmed that this is a source blend, so I think that was the plan, is like, hey, let's sell this to keep the lights on while we age our own distillate. Now, right away, if you pour a glass of this, it is a little harsh on the nose. The alcohol comes through kind of strong on the nose, but right away you're gonna be like, whoa. For me, this is like always like banana pudding, cream, vanilla, those sorts of flavors. Gotta stay sober jug today because I can actually rinse this out. I'm tired of burning through plastic cups. The palate for me personally, so specific. It's banana cream pie, but like the banana cream pie that you make if you use the box mix banana pudding and you just put it in like a store-bought crust. I know how specific that is, but like it just screams that to me. Every sip I take of it, I'm like, I'm a kid again eating one of those banana cream pies. Here's the thing. I usually don't like things that are blended with grain whiskey. It usually just comes through with this kind of stale taste that I'm not a big fan of. I've even had things that I didn't know had grain whiskey in it, and I taste them, and then I'm like, oh, there's gotta be grain whiskey blended into this. Not a fan. I think they did a great job with this. There's so much flavor, it overcomes some of that kind of stale taste that I'm talking about from the grain whiskey. More importantly, at only 82 proof. It's very approachable. Most beginners that I've had try this, my own friends, they love it because it's just like sweet, it's approachable, it's not harsh. You do get some of that alcohol burn, and don't get me wrong, if you drink a lot of barrel proof stuff and you want something like that, this is gonna taste watered down to you. It's only 82 proof, and it's not like super duper full bodied, not a ton of body, not crazy complex, but approachable, tasty. I think like 35 bucks. I need to Google that to confirm. In Ohio, only 30 bucks. So that's just like, that's almost a no-brainer, especially if you're newer, because it's just so easy to drink. It will be a room divider. If you like spice, if you like barrel influence, you like those strong oaky notes, you're not gonna get it here. This is much more mellow of a flavor. But if you want something approachable and sweet, especially if you like banana, because this for me is just a banana bomb, it's worth trying. And I'll say it again, it's fun. Who's next? I'm gonna save my favorite for last. So we're gonna move on to Lodestar American Whiskey. Here's my thing about Lodestar. I went into it so skeptical. I did not expect very much from this bottle. And I think it's because their marketing, if I can say something a little critical of their marketing, I think they focus way too much on the story and not enough on like the quality of what they blended. And I don't know if it's because they didn't put too much time into the blend and they just had dumb luck, or maybe they put a ton of time into the blend, but they thought the story would be better marketing. But whatever it is that they did, even if it was accidental, I think is fantastic. So this is a blend of American single malt and high-rye bourbon. Hear me out. Sounds weird, right? Like, sounds rough. It's great, I think. And I know for a fact this is a room divider. This is gonna be a theme with blended whiskeys. I know for a fact this is a room divider because I know some people online do not like it when I've put it in my videos before. But I do, and I think certain people will do, so let's taste it and talk about who will like it. This is what I mean about the messaging here. Just on the back of the bottle, you can see it. So they've got a lot of marketing type stuff going on here. And then just very briefly, they talk about the notes: caramel and hints of citrus with warm baking spice and a smooth malted finish. So just like a brief thing about, hey, yeah, also this tastes good. But I think that's what they're missing in the messaging. I'm gonna stop talking about the messaging and just taste it. So there's immediately a malty, buttery sweetness, as if you were drinking just an American single malt. Then you get the punch from that high-rye bourbon. You get a little bit of the barrel comes through, then some black pepper, and even almost like a citrus or something like a little zingy that adds to it. And here's the thing, okay, so we're talking 90 proof, $45 MSRP. And this is where it's gonna divide rooms, because are there better, let's say, high-rye bourbons or American single malts out there for that money? Probably. Would they score higher? Probably. But if you know me, I always give bonus points for uniqueness. And is this super unique for that price range? Yes. I mean, usually, if you want something with that unique of a flavor profile, you have to get way up into the high price ranges, and those are cleaner and maybe a little less harsh, but they're extremely expensive. So to break into a $45-ish price range and have something that's actually very unique, I like it. I have to give you some downsides because some people aren't going to like it. So first of all, like I said, are there less harsh things out there in those higher price ranges? Absolutely. You still get some of the alcohol burn. It comes through just a hair strong. And then on top of that, it's not like super multi-dimensional. So there's that little kind of change from the malt over to the bourbon that I mentioned along the palate. But it's not like insanely complex. You're not gonna get super different notes every time you take a sip of it. So it really depends what you're looking for. Me, I give bonus points for uniqueness. I have saved my favorite for last, and I think it's my favorite right now of the three that I'm talking about because I forgot about it. I have too many frickin' bottles on my shelf, and then when I moved, I'm like, oh, I forgot about this stuff. So this is Keeper's Heart, and this is the brainchild of an Irish master distiller, Brian Nation, and he worked with the founder of High West Distillery, David Perkins, and they came together and they've got these different blends of Irish whiskey with other stuff. This is specifically the Irish and Bourbon Cask Strength. This has an MSRP of $50, if I'm not mistaken, but I've also had their Irish American, which is a blend with American rye whiskey, and I really enjoyed that as well. So I've liked both of the releases that I've had from these folks. Super unique. That's enough babbling. Let's try it. Oh yeah, and if you thought TX was too boring, did I mention it's 118 proof? Yeah. What I love about both of the blends I've had from Keeper's Heart is you get distinct flavors from each of the things that they blend, but you also get a commingling. It's kind of like, oh, this almost tastes like an Irish whiskey, but also this almost tastes like a bourbon, but also this kind of tastes like a blend of the two. I don't know if I'm explaining that the greatest, but it's kind of like sometimes when you blend things, like the TX is a great example, it just kind of tastes like this thing, like its own thing. Sometimes with like Lodestar, you're like, okay, I can see how this is a blend of both of them. This, you can even more distinctly see the elements that were blended together, but you do still get some of that commingling. Me personally, I noticed the Irish whiskey a little bit more on this blend. Stone fruits, peaches, a little bit of a brown sugar. And then it's kind of like the bourbon aspect of it sears all of that, like it caramelizes all of it. The flavors are deeper. You know, with an Irish whiskey, you might get a peach with like a pear, like it's gonna be like light. With this, you're getting like a peach cobbler. It's like darker. It's got more brown sugar. I think it's some of that bourbon barrel-y flavor coming through. If you don't think that's worth 50 bucks, I'm sorry, I think there's something wrong with you. We can argue in the comments about it if you want. But here's the moral of the story, right? So all three of these, super different flavor profiles, and I think that's one of the reasons that blended whiskey gets a bad rep, because it's like, if you like this and you try this, you're gonna be like, I don't like blended whiskey. If you like this and you try either of these, you'll be like, I don't like blended whiskey. So it just depends on where you're coming from, but look into them. I mean, they're fun to investigate and be like, what's going into these things? At least I certainly think they're fun, and I didn't say fun nearly as much as I thought I was going to during this video. So hey, thank you for listening to Whiskey Noobs. Before you leave this video, please like, comment, subscribe, all the things, ring the notification bell. Thank you guys all. Cheers.